host, Lair the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, a review of the new movie, Metal Lords. Seems like everybody on my Facebook feed is talking about this movie, so I thought I would throw my 2 cents in the ring. The first part of this video is going to be a spoiler-free discussion, so if you haven't seen the movie, watch the first part of my video here, and then I will warn you when I'm moving into spoiler alert zone. And if you haven't seen it and want to watch the movie, you can bail out then, come back, watch the other half later. All right, Metal Lords. It takes place, I believe, in modern times. It's a teen comedy drama movie. I think it's modern times because they make some references to new-ish type bands like Meshuggah and Slipknot, Arch Enemy. They're also listening and doing stuff on computers and stuff like that. So it's not like some movie set in the 80s or anything like that. And it focuses around 3 main characters. There's Hunter, Kevin, and Emily. Hunter is, and all the characters have different sort of emotional issues or things that they're dealing with in their life. Hunter is the metalhead. He's got the long hair, denim jacket with patches on it, and Doc Martens and stuff like that. He's a guitar player. He's forming this metal band. He comes from a broken home. His dad is a plastic surgeon who lets him buy whatever he wants. He's starting this metal band with his childhood friend Kevin. Kevin only plays snare drum in the marching band, but Hunter wants him to play drums in his band. Kevin is he's insecure, he's shy and everything, and so Hunter sort of teaches him about heavy metal. There's a scene where he gives him a list of bands and songs that he should listen to, his history of heavy metal, which is pretty cool. And then there's another character, Emily, who comes into play in this, and she's again somebody that doesn't know much about heavy metal, and she has some issues herself. She's on medication for some psychological issues that she has. But the movie is fun and it's cool because a lot of times in movies like this, they don't really use metal music. They're sort of faking it. You know, the soundtrack will just be riffs that sound like Metallica riffs and stuff like that, but they actually use metal songs in the movie. So you hear a lot of Judas Priest, you hear Iron Maiden, you hear Pantera, and you hear a bunch of other bands mixed in there too, which is really cool. Hunter's room, or where they practice, I don't know, it's supposed to be his basement or something, is decked out in like metal posters and everything, and he's sort of a classic metalhead. You know, he's got pictures of Dio on his wall and Iron Maiden, yet he also has Meshuggah and you know, I think there's like a death patch on his shirt and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool that, you know, they have all these references in his room, where again, typically in a typical movie like this, they would have these fake bands on the wall that are supposed to look like metal bands. So it was cool that there's some authenticity to it. Tom Morello is the executive music producer, I believe was his title in it. So I don't know if that had something to do with it. He was able to look it over and make sure that everything was legit. There's also some cameos later on from some famous metalheads. I'll get into that in the spoiler alert section of the movie. But it's a fun movie. It's cool. It brought me back to my high school days, because the basic plot of the movie is that these characters try to form this band and they want to compete in a battle of the bands at their high school. And of course, there's you know, they're the typical outcasts at the school. Hunter's the outcast because he's a metalhead and he dresses strange and listens to these crazy bands. Kevin is insecure and everything, so he's a little bit geeky. He's an outcast because of that. Emily is just moved to the school. She's from Scotland. She has her issues. So these outcasts sort of, you know, they're able to unite around heavy metal, and the main scene of the movie, it all builds up to the Battle of the Bands, which is, I guess, is sort of a cliche in itself. You can sort of imagine how it's all going to work out in the end. But it's cool because it really took me back to my high school days, even though it takes place here today. I guess some things never change, right? You know, you always have your different groups of people in high school and everything. And it reminded me about how, and I may tell this story in another video, of how I had a band that was in a Battle of the Bands competition, and we sort of went up. It was a Davy and Goliath thing. I was a freshman, and we went up against bands that were seniors and everything, and it was a big thing for me, and it helped me brought me out of my shell too. I was a pretty quiet, shy, insecure person. And it was heavy metal and hard rock that, kind of gave me an identity, if you will. And there's still to this day people that I'll run into from high school, and that's what they know me for. I was the kid that played bass. I was the kid that was into AC/DC and stuff, Black Sabbath and stuff like that. So the movie really reminded me of that. It's fun, the way that these characters have to overcome their obstacles to meet their goals. And the other thing that I really liked about the movie is that it didn't portray metalheads how they're typically portrayed in movies like this. Usually in movies, metalheads are portrayed as, they're stoners or drug addicts. They've got extreme, mental issues and stuff like that. They're put in these sort of brooding, psychopaths or whatever. They're usually portrayed in a very negative light, but that's not the case here. Hunter, the main metal guy, he, for instance, doesn't smoke, drink, or do drugs or anything like that. In fact, he sort of frowns upon the other kids in his school that do these things. And of course, there's this dynamic at the school where the jocks and the popular kids are sort of, they have to battle them, at certain parts in the movie. There's a romantic love interest thing going on in the movie, too. So there's some stereotypical type of things that you would expect to see, cliched type things. But again, in the end, it's fun, and I appreciate the fact that they don't betray these kids as Hunter, especially because he's the guy that's really the diehard metal fan. And although he has his issues, and he's still a good guy. And my only complaint with the movie might be his character, and that sort of in the beginning of the movie, he's a real jerk, and he's sort of at one point kind of like, I don't know if I want to root for this guy, but in the end, it all sort of works out, and you do want to root for this guy. And again, it shows that through the music, it brings these characters together. It brings out the best in them. It brings Kevin, who's insecure. It makes him more confident. The same thing with Emily. She feels like she doesn't fit in, but this gives her something. Hunter is also somebody with his anger issues. It helps him, gives him an identity, and gives him a way to vent and everything. And so it shines a positive light on this, that the heavy metal music is a good thing. It makes these characters better people rather than it being, again, something that metal is usually portrayed as this bad thing. It makes people worse. It's part of the problem of whatever is wrong with these kids. Heavy metal is part of the problem. And I really appreciate that they didn't do that typical stereotype, because it reminded me again of myself when I was younger, and heavy metal did help me come out of my shell, and it did give me something to feel good about and to identify with. And I went to a Catholic school, so guys had to wear suits, and the girls were in these outfits and stuff, school uniforms. So we weren't able to sort of have our personalities out like that. But again, it just reminded me of my youth, so it made me feel good in that respect, that they don't treat these characters in this negative light. And there's also some, it's kind of cool. There's a character that inspires Hunter. Went to his high school, I believe back in the 80s, it's supposed to be, and he went on to become a famous metal musician. And and he does it by winning the battle of the bands at their school. So that's Hunter's motivation. Like, wow, this guy became famous from my school, became a famous metal musician by winning the battle of the bands, and this is his ultimate goal in life. So it's a fun movie. It's not anything super deep. It's funny. There were a lot of parts in the movie where I did had to put a big smile on my face and everything. I appreciate the references to t-shirts and stuff that they're wearing, and the posters on the wall, and the music that gets played in the background. It does feel genuine and authentic. All right, here we go. This is spoiler alert from here on out. I'm going to be talking about specific things. If you haven't seen the movie and you do want to see it, drop out here, maybe come back. This is around the 9.5, 10-minute mark. Come back. All right, spoiler alert from here on out. I love the part with the cameos with Rob Halford, Scott Ian, Kirk Hammett, and Tom Morello by the jacuzzi scene. I thought that was awesome. In some ways, I wish they had done more with those characters. Maybe they could have been like, an angel on his shoulder giving him advice through the whole thing. I thought that was just awesome. I wish that there was more of that. I did really like that Troy Nix character, the way he comes back when Hunter is in the rehabilitation, I guess put in that wellness center by his dad, whatever it was. And it turns out that Troy Nix is, the doctor at the place, and then when they're escaping from it, and he's escaping from it, and he runs in him when he thinks he's gonna bust him, and he's like, you can't play with a pick like that you gave me, you've gotta, use this kind of pick, and he goes on. And I love the scene too where he's a doctor, and he goes, so you don't drink, you don't do drugs, you don't have anything. He goes, so they just sent you here because you listen to brutal death metal. He goes, oh, I'm so tired of people doing that. Like this is something that happens to him all the time. And it's great because, again, I talked about this earlier, the stereotype of the lunatic, psychotic metal, Satan-worshipping metalhead, and it plays that down. It shows that is not always the case, and it's great that it shows this here with Hunter. He's none of those things. He's not a drug addict. He's not a dropout at school or anything. Like, he's just a good kid that likes heavy metal, and so I thought that was really cool. The scene with the Battle of the Band, the main theme song is actually, I should have written down what the name of the main theme song was, but I thought that was super cool. It was really catchy and everything, and I thought it was really cool. And I also really liked the fact that they didn't win the Battle of the Bands, that they came in second place, but it didn't matter to them because it was more important about them just doing this and the bond that they created between them. I love the way that Kevin, he's not a metalhead at the beginning of this, but Hunter gives him that list of songs, and he goes and he's listening to War Pigs by Black Sabbath and learning how to play that, and he transforms. Like, you see him, he starts wearing Doc Martens. All of a sudden you see him in the scene, he's got the cut off Volume 4 Black Sabbath shirt, and his hair starts getting a little bit longer, and he starts becoming a little bit cooler, becoming a metalhead. He's transforming into a metalhead. I thought that was awesome. And the way Emily shows up with the electric cello and everything, that was a super cool twist. So the whole Battle of the Bands thing was just sort of a cliche thing. It builds up to the Battle of the Bands, and you're expecting them to win the trophy and all that. I thought it was cool that they didn't win, but to them, it was a success. They did win. So, all right, there you go. My review of the new movie, Metal Lords. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was fun. I'm surprised that I've been reading some negative reviews about it, but it's people just complaining about, things for me that, yeah, okay, I guess you can get mad. Like, at times it doesn't look like they're really playing, but who cares? Maybe some of the metal references are a little outdated or something with some of the music. I thought it was great. They're playing real metal music in it. They got real metal posters on his wall in his room and everything. So for me, it felt real. I enjoyed it. It's a lighthearted movie. I don't think it's anything to be taken too seriously. It's just something to kick back, have fun with. It's an hour and a half long. Went by really quickly, so I enjoyed it. All right, there you go. Metal Lords. Let me know what you guys think of the movie down below in the comments. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.